Under a silver tide of moonlight, the coral city does not sleep. It merely shifts ownership. By day, the reef belongs to the merchants, the parrotfish chiseling coral into sand, the cleaner wrasses running their delicate salons, the butterfly fish weaving between soft corals like tourists in a marketplace. But when the sun dips and the reef's palette drains to grey-blue, its night governor emerges from the shadows. Thick-bodied, stone-faced, and patient to the point of menace, the grouper assumes control. It is the alley boss of the reef, a predator that rules not by speed or spectacle but by mastery of space, light, and timing. From a distance, a grouper seems immobile, almost lazy, hanging mid-water like a block of muscle suspended by thought alone. Yet this stillness is deceptive. Each twitch of its pectoral fin, each minor adjustment of its tilt serves purpose. The grouper's entire strategy revolves around dominance of geometry. It studies corridors of coral the way a hawk studies air currents, calculating ambush angles, memorizing escape routes, and exploiting the topography of light and shadow. In shallow reefs where moonlight ripples through the surface, the grouper reads the shifting brightness as a map of opportunity. Moonlight doesn't merely illuminate its world, it sculpts it. Under certain lunar phases, narrow shafts of light cut through the water, defining invisible walls and pockets of shadow. Smaller fish, squirrelfish, surgeonfish, wrasses, instinctively avoid the open bright patches, believing predators hide there. Ironically, it's the reverse. The grouper lurks in the transition zone, where darkness blurs into dim light, using the contrast as camouflage. Its mottled pattern of brown and ochre mirrors the reef's nocturnal texture so perfectly that even the camera lens struggles to isolate its outline. The grouper's physiology, from its lateral line tuned to low-frequency vibrations to the oversized eyes adapted for half-light vision, makes it a specialist of twilight ambush. When it strikes, the reef's silence implodes. With a single thrust of its broad tail, the grouper accelerates faster than physics seems to allow for such bulk. It opens its cavernous mouth in a flash, and water rushes inward with a suction force strong enough to pull prey from a distance greater than its own head length. The speed of the strike is measured not in seconds, but fractions of them. The prey disappears whole, swallowed before its nervous system can register terror. The grouper's gill covers flare once, expelling the excess water, and then it returns to stillness as if nothing occurred. To outside observers, the reef remains calm. Only a few drifting scales mark the event, like confetti after a quiet execution. Yet this is no mere hunter. The grouper operates with an intelligence that borders on tactical cooperation. It does not patrol alone. On many reefs from the Red Sea to the Great Barrier, divers and scientists have recorded groupers engaging in active partnerships with moray eels, forming a kind of underworld syndicate. When the grouper spots prey hiding deep in a crevice, it performs a ritualized headshake near the eel's den, a signal invitation to join the hunt. The eel, sensing opportunity, slides out of its lair and follows the grouper to the hiding place. Once there, each species plays to its strength. The eel, flexible and slender, invades the crevice, flushing the prey out. The grouper, waiting at the entrance, finishes the job with a single vacuum strike. What makes this partnership extraordinary is not its outcome, but its coordination. Each hunter understands the other's role. The grouper has been seen repeating the signal to summon the eel again if it strays too far, suggesting a rudimentary recognition of cause and effect, a level of cognitive sophistication rare among fish. The cooperation benefits both, shared effort for shared gain. For the grouper, it's efficient outsourcing. For the eel, it's a guaranteed meal. Together they patrol the reef's labyrinth like partners in a crime family, silent and ruthless. But even in the absence of allies, the grouper is more than capable of running the reef solo. During the darker nights of the lunar cycle, when moonlight dims and visual hunting becomes harder, it shifts strategy entirely. Rather than chasing, it ambushes by smell and sound. The grouper's inner ear can detect low-frequency vibrations of fish fins brushing coral, and its lateral line can sense pressure waves from movement several meters away. These sensory tools form a three-dimensional image of the reef, even in pitch blackness. When prey passes too close, the grouper erupts from cover with a surge of power, jaws snapping open in a blur that compresses the water around it like an explosion. This capacity for acoustic hunting becomes most chilling near the reef's so-called cleaning stations. These are neutral zones by day, where large fish, including predators, allow cleaner wrasses to remove parasites from their bodies. They function like diplomatic sanctuaries, governed by mutual trust. Yet when night falls, the treaty ends. The cleaners retreat into coral crevices, and the same platforms that hosted truce become hunting grounds. The grouper patrols these sites deliberately, knowing that small fish still hover nearby out of habit, expecting safety where there is none. In these moonlit moments, the line between ritual and violence blurs. The cleaning stations transform into crime scenes after curfew. The grouper's dominance stems partly from anatomy. Its heavy body, sometimes weighing over 100 kilograms in species like the giant grouper, is not a hindrance but an asset. The mass gives it stability in turbulent water and the inertia to drive suction feeding to extremes. When it opens its mouth, the sudden expansion of the buccal cavity creates negative pressure equivalent to a vacuum cleaner of monstrous scale. This hydraulic gulp draws prey from distances that defeat the escape reflex of most fish. Inside, backward-pointing gill rakers prevent any chance of escape. The entire process, detection, strike, capture, swallow, lasts less than a heartbeat. Yet it is the result of millions of years of evolutionary engineering. Reproductive behavior adds another layer to the grouper's story, turning this solitary enforcer into a participant in one of the ocean's most dramatic events. Many species gather in massive spawning aggregations timed precisely with lunar cycles. During full moons, hundreds of groupers converge on specific reef points, forming a living vortex of muscle and movement. For a few hours, hierarchy dissolves. The alley boss becomes part of a crowd, releasing clouds of sperm and eggs into the current. Then, as quickly as it began, the gathering disperses, leaving the reef quiet again. These spawning events are essential to the species' survival, but also make them vulnerable. Fishermen who learn the timing can wipe out entire local populations in a single night. Conservation groups now monitor and protect known aggregation sites, understanding that the grouper's dominance in the food web depends on these synchronized rituals of reproduction. Back in its domain, the grouper resumes its rule with quiet confidence. Few creatures challenge it. Even sharks, wary of its size and unpredictable lunges, tend to give it space. Octopuses, those clever night thieves of the reef, sometimes test its patience, stealing scraps from kills or taunting from unreachable cracks. Occasionally, the grouper retaliates with a short charge, a reminder that every alley has its order. Yet, for the most part, it governs through presence, not violence. The smaller fish sense the risk and adjust their behavior accordingly, avoiding certain routes or depths when the shadow of the boss passes overhead. The grouper's ecological role extends far beyond intimidation. As a top-level predator, it regulates populations of herbivorous fish, indirectly controlling algal growth and coral health. When groupers are removed from a reef, whether by overfishing or habitat loss, the entire system destabilizes. Algae proliferate, corals suffocate, and fish diversity collapses. In regions where conservation has restored grouper numbers, reefs rebound with remarkable speed. It is a biological demonstration of top-down regulation, the invisible hand of predation maintaining equilibrium. The alley boss may not know it, but its appetite sustains the architecture of the ocean's most complex ecosystem. And yet, even the strongest rulers face decline. In many tropical regions, groupers have been overexploited to supply live fish markets, their massive bodies sold as status dishes. Because they mature slowly and reproduce seasonally, their recovery is painfully slow. Scientists warn that without protection of spawning grounds, several species may vanish within decades. Ironically, the very qualities that make the grouper an apex hunter, patience, longevity, territorial fidelity, also make it vulnerable to human exploitation. The alley boss of the reef is not immune to a larger predator, us. Still, On nights when the moon rises high and the tide hums with silver light, the grouper continues its patrol. It moves through coral corridors like a shadow remembering its own weight, pausing at intersections of light where the reef's architecture offers both concealment and command. The smaller fish sense its presence and scatter. The moray from its den flicks a tongue of interest. Somewhere ahead, a cleaning station lies empty, silent witness to the hour when order gives way to hunger. The grouper glides closer, patient as gravity itself, waiting for the next flicker of movement to betray life. Then, in a sudden vacuum of motion, the reef inhales, and one more life vanishes into the dark geometry of the alley boss's domain. Midnight on the reef is a different planet. The water seems heavier, the colors drain to charcoal and indigo, and every movement occurs under the cloak of darkness thick enough to erase outlines. Yet in this black water, life continues in secret rhythms. Small crustaceans shuffle through sand grains, bioluminescent worms trace faint neon spirals, and reef fish hover in suspended dreams, sheathed in mucus cocoons to hide their scent. Amid this hush, the sand shifts slightly, a ripple no longer than a breath. Then, like smoke solidifying into intent, an octopus emerges. The creature doesn't burst onto the scene, it materializes. One moment there is nothing. The next, an 8-limbed shape unfurls from the seafloor, grains of sand sliding off its back as if gravity itself is reluctant to disturb it. The octopus's body, soft and fluid, reshapes effortlessly from a flat disc into a hunting form, the mantle swelling with each pulse of water drawn through its siphon. It pauses, taste-testing the current with the chemoreceptors on its arms. A crab, perhaps 10 body lengths away, gives itself away with the faintest scrape of a claw. For the octopus, this is enough. The blackout magician has its cue. What follows is a performance that fuses intelligence, engineering, and improvisation. The octopus inflates slightly, stretching its webbed arms into a parachute of living fabric. Then, in one smooth lunge, it sails over the unsuspecting crab. The web collapses like a curtain, sealing the victim inside. Scientists call this behavior the parachute pounce, an ambush technique that exploits both stealth and geometry. Rather than chase or grapple, the octopus simply creates a temporary prison from its own body. Once the crab's panic reverberates through the trapped chamber, a single arm snakes inward, guided by touch alone, to deliver the fatal bite from the beak hidden at the center. A pulse of venom paralyzes, dissolves, and digests all at once, turning the prey into an edible broth. The magician retreats into darkness with its meal. But the stagecraft doesn't end with the hunt. The octopus returns to its den, a narrow crevice in rock or coral, its entrance carefully arranged with shells, stones, and bits of debris. Each object is deliberate. To an untrained eye, it looks like random litter. In truth, it's a fortified threshold. Biologists describe this as tool caching, one of the most advanced behaviors ever recorded in invertebrates. The octopus collects materials not for immediate use but for future contingencies: shells for barricades, coconut halves for portable armor, rocks to block predators like moray eels or triggerfish. When disturbed, it can seal the entrance with these items like a homeowner locking the door. This level of foresight, planning, and material manipulation rivals that of some birds and primates, creatures with brains orders of magnitude larger. Yet inside its gelatinous head, the octopus wields intelligence distributed through its body. Unlike vertebrates, where the brain commands and the limbs obey, the octopus's nervous system delegates authority. 2/3 of its neurons reside in its arms, granting each limb a degree of autonomy. The arms can explore, grasp, and even make decisions independently, while the central brain focuses on larger strategy. When one tentacle investigates a rock crevice, another simultaneously tests the water temperature, while a third holds a shell in readiness. It is a decentralized network, a living democracy of neurons that makes the animal both adaptive and unpredictable. In scientific terms, it is an existence that blurs the boundary between body and mind. During the darkest hours before dawn, the octopus becomes a traveler, venturing from its den in sweeping loops across the seafloor. These midnight runs are not reckless wanderings but patrols, a structured circuit that maximizes foraging efficiency. Marine biologists tracking individuals with low-light cameras have found that each octopus maintains a consistent route, visiting favorite hunting spots, scavenging remains from earlier kills, and inspecting potential den upgrades. It is a nightly commute, guided not by landmarks, but by a complex memory of texture, smell, and spatial pattern. The octopus's world is mapped through touch and chemical cues rather than sight. Even in total darkness, it navigates corridors of information invisible to human perception. When it returns to the den, something extraordinary often happens. As it settles into rest, the animal's skin begins to shimmer, waves of color rolling across its body like northern lights in miniature. The chromatophores, tiny pigment sacs in the skin controlled by neural signals, expand and contract rhythmically. Sometimes the patterns flash in bursts, sometimes they flow in looping sequences that seem to replay moments from the hunt. Scientists observing sleeping octopuses have speculated that these chromatophore storms may represent a form of dreaming, the body reenacting sensory memories while the mind rests. If true, this would make the octopus one of the few known invertebrates to display behaviors consistent with active sleep states, suggesting not only intelligence, but a form of internal consciousness. Chromatophores are not mere decoration, they are a biological interface between thought and environment. Each is a tiny balloon of pigment, yellow, red, brown, or black, surrounded by radial muscles that expand or contract under electrical impulses. The result is near instantaneous camouflage, but more complex than simple color change. Beneath the chromatophores lie iridophores and leucophores, cells that manipulate light reflection and scattering. By combining these layers, the octopus can mimic not only the hue of surrounding rock, but also its texture and depth. Under moonlight, it can appear granular like sand. Under starlight, it takes on a glassy gleam. Even when motionless, it is alive with shifting intent. Each color, pulse, an electrochemical echo of mood and perception. Capturing this transformation requires patience and precision. In recent years, researchers using red light cinematography, wavelengths invisible to the octopus's eyes, have documented camouflage and signaling behaviors previously unseen. Under white or blue light, the octopus vanishes completely. Under red, its secrets unfold. Subtle stripes form across its arms as it assesses a crab's position. Faint flashes ripple down its mantle when startled. Some of these displays may serve communication, others pure physiological maintenance, fine-tuning pigment expansion like muscle exercise. What's striking is that many of these red light patterns occur when the animal believes it is invisible, revealing an unseen layer of behavior that reshapes our understanding of its sensory world. The octopus's mastery of invisibility is not simply reactive camouflage, it's predictive. In laboratory settings, individuals have been shown to anticipate the movement of objects and shift coloration preemptively, blending into a new background before fully reaching it. This implies not just sensory input but cognitive modeling, the brain imagining what the environment will look like and preparing in advance. In the wild, this ability allows the octopus to move from shadow to shadow without ever truly becoming visible. For predators like sharks or groupers, this means the octopus is less an animal than a pattern that refuses to stabilize. Yet the magician is not immune to risk. Its soft body, free of bones or protective shells, makes it a paradox, both evolution's masterpiece of adaptability and a vulnerability in motion. Every dive outside its den is a negotiation between hunger and hazard. Moray eels, triggerfish, and even dolphins pose constant threats. When chased, the octopus deploys its signature vanishing act, a jet of ink expelled from its siphon, not merely to obscure vision, but to create a decoy. The ink contains melanin and mucus, forming a cohesive blob roughly the size and shape of the octopus itself. Predators often strike at this phantom while the real creature rockets away, using jet propulsion to disappear into the dark. The tactic demonstrates an understanding of perception, an animal manipulating another's sensory expectations. When the danger passes, the octopus often returns to rebuild. Around its den, the front yard of discarded shells and debris tells a story of its habits. Researchers studying these middens can identify species, prey preferences, and even seasonal cycles. Some octopuses maintain their dens for months, others abandon them after a single night's occupation. The choice reflects not loyalty but strategy. A fixed home invites recognition by predators, while constant movement disperses risk. Each behavior is situational, the result of calculation rather than instinct alone. This adaptability extends to tool use in the wild. Off Indonesia's coasts, the veined octopus has been filmed collecting coconut shells discarded by humans, transporting them across the seabed, and assembling them into portable shelters. The act requires foresight, carrying materials for future defense, and coordination, balancing the shells while crawling on two arms. It is one of the few examples of deliberate construction in an animal without a skeleton. In evolutionary terms, this behavior places the octopus closer to crows and apes than to its mollusk relatives. Inside its den, as dawn begins to filter through the water, the magician slows. The chromatophores fade to neutral beige, and the arms coil loosely in rest. The reef outside brightens, bringing back the daytime cast of grazers and swimmers. The octopus remains still, yet within that stillness the brain continues to process. Electrical activity measured during rest cycles shows oscillations reminiscent of mammalian sleep. Perhaps it replays the night's hunts, reinforcing learning through biochemistry. Perhaps those rippling colors across its body during slumber are the echoes of remembered hunts, a ghost theater of instincts turned into images. For all its intelligence, the octopus lives briefly. Most species survive less than 2 years, their lives compressed into an arc of rapid growth, mastery, reproduction, and death. When a female lays her eggs, she dedicates herself entirely to their care, ceasing to feed and using her siphon to oxygenate them constantly until they hatch. By then, her body is emaciated, her nervous system collapsing in programmed senescence. It is a final act of devotion that ensures the next generation inherits her knowledge not through culture, but through biology itself, genes coded with centuries of adaptation. As night once again descends on the reef, another octopus will take its place in the invisible drama of the sea. A shadow that thinks, a hand that remembers, a magician performing in total darkness, its art invisible except to those who know how to look. Through red light lenses and patient observation, humanity has only begun to glimpse the truth, that intelligence in the ocean does not always wear bones or eyes that meet ours. Sometimes it hides beneath skin that dreams in color, a mind that paints its own thoughts across the surface of its body. In the fading light of tropical dusk, when the last orange shreds of the sun scatter across the mangrove channels of northern Australia, a quiet patrol begins. Beneath the wavering reflections of roots and reeds, the water holds a near-perfect stillness, until it doesn't. A faint, nearly invisible shimmer glides between the shadows, a box jellyfish on its evening route.
It is not drifting aimlessly as its gelatinous cousins do. It is piloting.
With delicate corrections of its bell, the animal slides parallel to the tangle of mangrove roots, staying within a narrow corridor it has learned by pattern and instinct. To the untrained eye, the creature seems passive, a floating phantom. But in truth, it is a hunter and a navigator whose world is mapped in light, movement, and pain. Box jellyfish are among the ocean's most efficient predators, yet their reputation as mindless killers undersells their complexity. They are the apex tacticians of the planktonic realm, ruling a band of water no thicker than a doorway. Where other jellyfish wander with the tides, these animals hold position, tracking obstacles, timing their patrols, and choosing their targets with chilling precision. This behavior has earned them an eerie nickname among marine scientists, the lane keepers. As twilight deepens, the mangrove estuary becomes a flickering maze of light and contrast. Tiny fish dart from one patch of shade to another, their silver scales reflecting the last usable photons before night. For the box jellyfish, this is the perfect hour. Inside its nearly transparent cube-shaped bell, 24 eyes arrayed across 4 sides are adjusting to the gloom. They are not eyes in the human sense. No brain collects or interprets their images. Yet they are startlingly sophisticated, 6 eyes per corner, grouped into clusters called rhopalia, each with specialized roles. 4 of them detect light and shadow. 2 have lenses capable of forming true images, complete with depth perception. These eyes do not merely react, they inform movement. Researchers studying Chironex fleckeri, the most infamous of the box jellyfish, have watched individuals turn deliberately to avoid mangrove roots or navigate around pier pilings, actions that require spatial awareness. Their lanes, invisible ribbons of water between obstructions, are not random drift paths but chosen routes. The jellyfish seems to recognize where light filters through gaps, suggesting that it uses contrast, not shape, as a navigational cue. Even without a central brain, the animal possesses a distributed neural network, a ring of nerve cells around the bell's margin that processes visual and tactile input on the fly. It is a living autopilot, translating faint flashes of brightness into a course correction that keeps it from smashing against wood or rock. This low-level intelligence serves a higher purpose: hunting. As night seeps in, juvenile fish venture from the safety of mangrove roots into open shallows to feed on plankton. They move in jerks and twitches, silhouettes trembling under the surface glow. The box jellyfish, sensing motion, halts. Its bell contracts slightly, drawing in and pushing out water in precise pulses. From its 4 corners trail up to 15 translucent tentacles, each armed with millions of nematocysts, microscopic harpoons loaded with venom potent enough to stop a human heart in minutes. The jellyfish spreads these threads like a ghost net, forming an almost invisible cube of death. When a fish blunders into this perimeter, even for a fraction of a second, the response is instantaneous. The nematocysts fire, injecting venom that targets cardiac muscle and nerve transmission. The prey spasms once, and the current brings its body toward the bell. The feeding process is oddly methodical. The jellyfish does not engulf or chew, but wraps the immobilized fish in a fold of tentacle, pulling it toward the bell's underside, where it dissolves slowly into a slurry of amino acids and fats. Within a few minutes, the hunter returns to its lane. This efficiency is vital. At dusk, every minute counts. The box jellyfish's visual system functions best in dim but not total darkness. Once the mangrove channels fall into full night, its world becomes unreadable. During those few critical minutes between sunset and darkness, however, its performance spikes. Scientists who measured activity levels have found that hunting success nearly doubles during twilight, when visual contrast is high enough to distinguish prey, but low enough that fish lose their ability to detect the jellyfish's transparent form. This crepuscular strategy makes evolutionary sense. By patrolling during twilight, the jellyfish avoids the harsh ultraviolet light that could damage its fragile tissues and reduces competition from diurnal predators. It also minimizes risk from its few natural enemies, certain sea turtles and large fish that can tolerate or avoid its tentacles. The box jellyfish is not immortal or invincible. Its lifespan is measured in mere months, its body a delicate architecture of collagen and water. But during that brief reign, it is among the ocean's most refined killers. Perhaps the most chilling aspect of this creature is not its venom, but its design. The bell's cube geometry, about the size of a basketball in large specimens, provides hydrodynamic stability. Each contraction of the bell propels it forward in a straight line, while flexible corners allow for sharp turns. Laboratory tests show that Chironex can travel at speeds up to 2 meters per second, faster than many small fish. To maintain control, the jellyfish adjusts the contraction strength of its 4 lobes independently, steering like a living drone. This allows it to trace the edges of mangroves with uncanny precision, turning corners without colliding, holding a fixed distance from roots as if obeying an invisible lane line. That precision has led researchers to describe its movement as goal-directed. While most jellyfish are governed entirely by current and chance, box jellyfish appear to select habitat zones intentionally. Juveniles remain in estuaries and mangroves where prey density is high, while adults migrate seaward to breed. They orient to shorelines, maintaining consistent distances from obstacles, suggesting they possess a primitive spatial memory. It is navigation without thought, a sensory feedback loop that achieves the same outcome as planning. but nature's elegance hides danger for the unprepared. The same mangrove shallows that serve as nurseries for fish and jellyfish alike are also playgrounds for humans seeking relief from tropical heat. In northern Queensland and parts of Southeast Asia, medical records show that box jellyfish stings spike between November and May, the wet season, when breeding adults swarm near coasts. The venom of Keronex fleckeri is a biochemical masterpiece of lethality, containing multiple toxins that simultaneously attack the heart, nervous system, and skin. A sting can produce excruciating pain, rapid heart failure, and death within minutes if untreated. Even smaller species like Carukia barnesi, responsible for the infamous Irukandji syndrome, can cause delayed but severe reactions, nausea, hypertension, and an overwhelming sense of doom that can last for hours. First aid for such encounters has evolved from folklore to science. The traditional instinct to rinse with fresh water worsens the situation by triggering undischarged nematocysts. Instead, experts recommend flushing the area with household vinegar, which neutralizes the stinging cells chemically. For serious cases, antivenom derived from sheep serum offers limited relief if administered promptly, though it remains controversial among some researchers. The real solution lies in prevention, wearing full-body stinger suits and observing beach closures during peak jellyfish months. Yet each year, swimmers underestimate the danger of what they cannot see, a hunter whose transparency is its greatest weapon. Curiously, the same venom that causes agony in humans has begun to reveal new secrets. Biomedical researchers studying its chemical structure have discovered proteins that interact with cellular calcium channels, providing insights into heart attack mechanisms. In a twist of irony, the box jellyfish's lethal precision may someday help save lives, its toxins serving as molecular keys to human medicine. This duality underscores the broader truth of ecology, that every danger carries information, every adaptation a potential gift. Back in the mangrove shadows, the jellyfish's patrol continues. The water is now almost black, the last photons slipping away into the horizon. With its eyes no longer able to distinguish form from darkness, the creature retracts its tentacles and drifts downward, bells slowing its rhythm. For the night, the lane keeper rests, suspended a few centimeters above the silt. Small shrimp scuttle past without fear, and the soft pulse of bioluminescent plankton outlines the jellyfish's cube like a faint lantern. It is easy to forget that this fragile form holds the power to fell a man in the time it takes to draw a single breath. By dawn, it will rise again, retracing the same invisible corridors between mangrove roots, guided by light, shadow, and instincts encoded long before vertebrates walked the land. Its patrols will continue for as long as its tissues hold together, a few weeks, perhaps a month. Then its body will dissolve into the same waters that once magnified its menace, recycled into the planktonic soup from which all sea life feeds. The lanes will remain, empty but ready, waiting for the next transparent sentinel to take its place in the eternal rhythm of the tides. In these mangrove labyrinths, where roots twist like petrified lightning and the air tastes of salt and decay, the box jellyfish endures as a paradox, a creature of almost mathematical elegance, armed with biological cruelty. Its 24 eyes, unblinking and brainless, maintain the boundaries of its world with silent discipline. In an ecosystem where visibility means vulnerability, it sees just enough to kill, and just enough to keep to its lane. Night falls on the reef like a slow exhalation. The sun's departure drains the colors from coral until only outlines remain: charcoal towers, black canyons, and narrow alleys of stone where daylight once shimmered. This is the hour of the moray eel, the hidden engineer of the reef's underworld. Its realm begins where light ends, inside the tunnels, vents and cracks that lace the coral wall like veins through bone. When darkness thickens enough that small fish begin to lose confidence in their own silhouettes, the moray slides forward from its hole, a muscle uncoiling from the rock. The reef breathes out its predators. The eel's movement is deliberate, sinuous, and tense with awareness. Its entire body is a ribbon of predatory precision, each vertebra rotating fractionally, each muscle band contracting in sequence, propelling it silently through the narrow corridors between coral heads. The moray does not swim like other fish. It flows. This undulating motion allows it to navigate the tightest spaces, its skin brushing surfaces so close it can feel the faint vibrations of passing prey through the lateral line that runs from head to tail. Unlike scaled fish, the moray's skin is thick and mucus-coated, reducing friction and preventing abrasions from sharp coral. It is a design optimized for claustrophobic combat. When the camera follows a moray into its lair, the sense of scale changes. The world shrinks to a tunnel barely wide enough for its head, the walls encrusted with sponges and polyps that close like living valves as it passes. Within these corridors, it is the undisputed ruler. The moray's head is blunt and triangular, housing a jaw lined with recurved teeth designed not to cut, but to hold. Its prey rarely leaves intact. But what truly sets the moray apart from all other reef predators lies deeper inside its throat. A hidden set of jaws, evolved from gill arches, known as pharyngeal jaws. In most fish, the pharyngeal jaws serve as a modest internal grinding mechanism, used to crush shells or manipulate food. In morays, evolution rewired them into a second pair of grasping arms. When the outer jaws seize prey, these inner jaws shoot forward from the throat, grab the struggling victim, and drag it backward into the esophagus with shocking force. The sequence happens in less than a second, a two-stage strike no other vertebrate can replicate. Watching it through slow-motion footage feels almost alien, like a creature deploying an inner predator within itself. This adaptation allows the moray to feed deep within the reef's labyrinths, where suction feeding, the method most fish use to draw prey into the mouth, is impossible because there's no space to create a vacuum. This double-jawed feeding system is an anatomical triumph of biomechanics. When the moray strikes, its outer jaws latch onto prey, say a small wrasse or crustacean. At that moment, the pharyngeal jaws, anchored by specialized muscles along the skull and vertebrae, slide forward on a skeletal track. The inner jaws lock onto the prey's body and retract, pulling it deeper into the digestive tract. The moray doesn't chew or tear, it transfers. Each motion is a relay of grip. In the dark tunnels where it hunts, this means the eel can swallow large, slippery fish without ever backing out of its hole. Evolution found a way to make feeding in confinement not only possible, but efficient. The corridors themselves define the moray's strategy. During the day, these alleys act as hiding spaces, the eel's head protruding just enough for its eyes to watch for trespassers. The eyes are not large, and their vision is limited, especially in bright light. Instead, the eel relies heavily on smell. Its nostrils, called nares, are flared like tiny tubes, drawing in faint chemical trails through the current. Even a drop of fish blood diluted across several meters of water is enough to pull the eel from its den. Its sense of smell functions as a nocturnal radar, charting invisible scent corridors that run through the reef. When night takes over, the moray shifts from sentinel to prowler. It leaves its hole entirely, navigating an ecosystem that has inverted in rhythm. Sleeping parrotfish cocooned in mucus bubbles, cleaner shrimps retreating into their burrows, and octopuses beginning their own forays into the shallows. The eel's world is suddenly alive with opportunities, and it hunts with a calculated patience that belies its violent anatomy. It glides along the reef face, probing crevices with its head, testing the water for scent changes. A startled cardinal fish flashes away and the eel pauses, not in indecision but calculation. Every movement consumes energy. In this slow economy of night, only precision brings profit. Yet even predators here rarely act alone. The moray's most remarkable behavior emerges when it teams up with another hunter, the grouper. It is a partnership that seems improbable, one a sleek, finned powerhouse of open water, the other a serpentine ambush artist of tight corridors. But evolution, through trial and mutual benefit, forged an alliance across form and function. Groupers are visual hunters. They chase prey into the reef's cracks but cannot follow. Morays, by contrast, can enter those cracks but cannot chase in open water. Together they close the loop. The cooperation begins with a signal. Divers and biologists have observed groupers performing a distinct head-shaking motion, rapid, side-to-side oscillations directed at nearby morays. This gesture functions as an invitation to hunt. If the eel responds, the two set off side by side, sweeping over the reef like partners in a choreographed patrol. When prey is spotted, a fish hiding between coral branches or under a ledge, the grouper lunges, forcing it deeper into cover. Waiting within those narrow confines, the moray strikes from the opposite side, often cornering the prey with nowhere to flee. The success rate of such joint hunts is dramatically higher than when either species hunts alone. The evolutionary logic is clear. Cooperation expands each predator's reach. For the moray, this partnership brings access to open water prey it could never catch on its own. For the grouper, it provides a living extraction tool capable of flushing victims from impossible angles. The behavior represents a sophisticated form of interspecies communication, rare among fish and especially rare among predators. It demonstrates that even without social structures or vocal calls, reef hunters have evolved methods to coordinate through motion, context, and reward. As the camera follows a hunting pair through the night, the reef transforms from scenery into circuitry. Every hole, ridge, and tunnel becomes part of a shared tactical map. The grouper hovers, twitching its fins for micro-adjustments, while the moray slithers below, probing crevices like a moving wire. The prey, often a small squirrelfish, bursts from hiding, darting toward open water in a panic. The grouper engulfs it in a single gulp, and for a brief moment both hunters freeze, as if acknowledging the kill. Then they move on. There is no competition, no visible aggression, only the fluid continuation of the hunt. The alliance lasts as long as the night does. When the eastern horizon begins to pale, signaling the approach of dawn, the moray retreats. The reef's acoustics shift. The snapping of pistol shrimp intensifies, damselfish stir from their crevices, and the soft hum of photosynthesis begins to return as corals open their polyps to feed on light. The eel's eyes, adapted for dimness, start to lose contrast. It seeks the comfort of its home tunnel, backing in tail first until only its head remains visible. There it rests, mouth opening and closing rhythmically to pump water across its gills. The gesture looks menacing, but it is simply breathing, a physiological necessity that has given the species its fearsome reputation among divers. Inside the tunnel, the moray's world is again defined by touch and scent. The surrounding coral is alive with microcurrents carrying traces of passing animals. If a small fish approaches too closely, mistaking the entrance for a cave, the eel might strike reflexively. Yet much of its day is spent in near stasis, conserving energy in a habitat where food comes in pulses. Its metabolism slows, its awareness narrows to the space immediately before its face. This pattern, active predator by night, patient sentinel by day, defines its role in the reef's hierarchy. It is both sculptor and recycler, consuming weak or careless prey and leaving behind the strong. Ecologically, the moray plays an essential but understated role. By preying on small fish that graze on algae or corals, it helps maintain the balance between plant and animal life on the reef. Its abandoned burrows become temporary shelters for cleaner shrimp, brittle stars, or juvenile fish. Even its discarded mucus coat, shed periodically to remove parasites, feeds detritivores that convert waste back into the food chain. The eel, in its solitary existence, sustains a network of life it never sees. Evolution has tested this design across millennia. There are more than 200 species of moray eels, ranging from reef dwellers to deep-sea specialists. Some, like the giant moray of the Indo-Pacific, can exceed 3 meters in length and weigh over 30 kilograms, while others, like the ribbon eel, are thin as a pencil and iridescent blue. Despite their diversity, all share the same fundamental blueprint: flexible bodies, mucus armor, and those remarkable twin jaws. It is a design that has survived since the late Cretaceous, when reefs were dominated by ammonites and primitive fish. In that time, almost every other lineage has changed dramatically, but the moray has remained functionally perfect for its chosen world. At night, when the camera lingers on an eel's head emerging from the rock, one can see the faint reflection of its eyes in the light beam. Behind that gaze lies neither malice nor intelligence as humans understand it. but something older, an instinct sharpened to mathematical precision. Every movement, every breath, every strike is calibrated to the geometry of the reef. It has no need to learn or improvise. Its body is the environment's answer to its own complexity. By the time the sun floods the water again, the moray's presence has been erased. The corridors it patrolled now host shoals of brightly colored fish, the same species that will vanish again when darkness returns. Yet the eel remains, patient and unseen, a muscular equation waiting for dusk to restore balance. The corridor of jaws will open once more, and in the blind alleys of coral, the ancient partnership between geometry and hunger will begin again. The reef under midday sun resembles a battlefield frozen mid-motion. Fish drift in slow parades of color, corals flicker with feeding polyps, and crustaceans hide beneath ledges waiting for dusk to grant them courage. Yet amid this calm, a faint ripple disturbs the symmetry, a distortion that does not belong to current or wave. A cuttlefish is approaching. Not with stealth in the traditional sense, but with a visual strategy so elaborate that camouflage becomes performance art. To watch one hunt is to witness a neurological light show unfold across living skin, where color, pattern, and intent merge into weaponry. The cuttlefish is a paradox of design, part cephalopod, part illusionist. With a brain-to-body ratio rivaling some vertebrates, it navigates the reef as both predator and translator, reading the visual grammar of its surroundings and rewriting it to its advantage. Its skin contains millions of chromatophores, each a microscopic ink sac controlled by rings of muscle that expand and contract in response to neural commands. Beneath them lie iridophores and leucophores, structural layers that bend and scatter light into iridescent shimmer or matte neutrality. Together, these layers create a biological display system far more advanced than any human technology. Every flicker of pigment is a decision, every pulse a sentence in a language of color. When the cuttlefish hunts, it enters a state of kinetic stillness. Suspended above the sand, its body flattens, arms tucked tightly, tentacles poised like drawn wires. Its eyes, W-shaped pupils that filter polarized light, scan for movement invisible to most predators and prey. Polarization, the alignment of light waves, reflects differently off surfaces such as shrimp carapaces or fish scales. By perceiving it, the cuttlefish sees hidden outlines where others see nothing. To its vision, the reef is not chaos but code, a world annotated with optical signals. A small shrimp, no longer than a finger joint, creeps across the sand below, antennae trembling as it forages. The cuttlefish adjusts its posture minutely, orienting itself within strike range. Then the show begins. From the head downward, dark and pale bands begin to ripple in rapid succession, a zebra barrage. These high-contrast pulses travel across the cuttlefish's mantle like alternating beams of light, accelerating and slowing in tempo. To the shrimp, whose eyes cannot interpret such rapid changes, the effect is hypnotic. Its neural system, overwhelmed by the strobing contrast, freezes momentarily. In that fraction of immobility, the cuttlefish strikes. The attack mechanism is as elegant as it is efficient. Two feeding tentacles, kept retracted within a sheath between the arms, shoot outward in less than a tenth of a second. Their tips expand into suctioned pads that grab the prey and retract it toward the beak-like mouth. Venom delivers paralysis, and the cuttlefish resumes its neutral tone, hovering once more as though nothing happened. The entire event is silent and surgical, a perfect example of predation through sensory manipulation rather than brute force. The hypnotic zebra barrage is not intimidation. It is neurological interference, exploiting the limits of another creature's perception. Such control over visibility extends far beyond camouflage. The cuttlefish can simultaneously broadcast different messages to different audiences, a form of deception biologists call dual signaling. When rival males square off over territory or mates, each performs a skin display that conveys dominance and readiness to fight. But if a third observer, usually a receptive female, lingers nearby, one male may split his patterning in half. On the side facing the rival, he displays aggression stripes. On the side facing the female, he switches to courtship waves of soft, rhythmic color. To the rival, he appears confrontational, to the female, seductive. This two-faced strategy allows him to sneak past more dominant males and mate covertly. It is deception layered upon deception, executed in fractions of a second. Laboratory studies have shown that these rapid shifts are not reflexive. They require sensory processing and context evaluation. The cuttlefish's brain integrates visual input from both eyes, each capable of moving independently, to assess threat, opportunity, and audience. This level of situational awareness suggests a degree of self-monitoring uncommon in invertebrates. In evolutionary terms, it demonstrates how intelligence can emerge not only from complexity of brain structure, but from the demands of social signaling. On the reef, communication can be as decisive for survival as speed or strength. As night descends, the reef transforms from a theater of color into a landscape of silhouettes and shadows. For most fish, vision dims and danger multiplies. For the cuttlefish, however, a new mode of communication awakens, one invisible to nearly every other creature. Beneath the chromatophore layer, specialized reflectors manipulate polarized light, producing subtle flashes and gradients that carry information between individuals. These polarization messages operate like encrypted signals, invisible to predators, lacking polarization sensitivity, yet vivid to other cuttlefish. Under red light, scientists have observed pairs exchanging synchronized flashes as they forage, possibly coordinating territory or courtship without alerting eavesdroppers. It is a private language encoded in physics itself. The utility of polarization extends beyond conversation. At night, when moonlight filters through the surface at an angle, the cuttlefish can navigate using polarization gradients, the same optical patterns used by honeybees in the sky. This celestial compass allows it to orient across the reef with remarkable precision, returning to the same resting crevices even after foraging excursions hundreds of meters away. Its navigation is a union of biological computation and environmental geometry, a sensory intelligence evolved for the low-light complexity of the marine twilight zone. When the cuttlefish rests, its body is never entirely still. Even in apparent calm, faint color ripples cross its mantle, residual electrical activity from chromatophore control circuits. In laboratory conditions, researchers have observed pattern flickering during sleep cycles similar to rapid eye movement stages in mammals. Some speculate that these chromatophore dreams replay recent experiences, consolidating visual learning much as human brains replay memory during sleep. If true, the cuttlefish may not only think, but remember in color, storing experience directly within the neural pathways that drive its display. From an ecological perspective, the cuttlefish occupies a unique niche. It is both predator and prey, balancing visibility and invisibility with equal mastery. When threatened, it can vanish instantly, altering its texture as well as color to mimic rock, algae, or sand. Tiny muscles under its skin, called papillae, raise or flatten the surface, changing its shape from smooth to spiky in less than a heartbeat. Combined with its color control, this gives the impression of matter rearranging itself, an animal dissolving into terrain. Yet camouflage is only one side of its defensive repertoire. When escape requires speed, it employs jet propulsion, expelling water from its siphon to shoot backward in a burst of acceleration. A cloud of ink may follow, laced with compounds that dull chemical sensors, masking its scent as well as its form. Even its ink is more than a smokescreen. Containing melanin, dopamine, and mucus, it mimics the visual and chemical profile of the cuttlefish itself, a moving decoy that confuses both visual and olfactory trackers. This level of multisensory deception indicates not only advanced anatomy, but an evolutionary strategy built on control of perception. Every facet of its biology, from its W-shaped pupils to its dynamic skin, serves a single governing principle: to dictate what others see and when they see it. The physical architecture supporting this is equally fascinating. The cuttlebone, the internal gas-filled shell that maintains buoyancy, allows precise adjustment of depth. By regulating gas and fluid ratios within this structure, the animal achieves near-neutral buoyancy, enabling effortless hovering. This stability is critical for its visual displays. A drifting body would betray unintended motion, disrupting the illusion. The cuttlebone's chambered structure inspired early designs in human buoyancy control devices, though none match its natural efficiency. Predators that target cuttlefish, such as sharks, dolphins, and large groupers, face a foe that does not fight, but erases itself. In experiments where dolphins attempted to catch them under controlled lighting, success rates plummeted once the animals activated their strobing defense displays. The oscillating flashes scrambled predator depth perception, creating false shadows and apparent movement in opposite directions. To the dolphin's sonar-guided brain, the target fractures into noise. The cuttlefish's strobe and stall routine thus becomes more than a trick of color. It is a full-spectrum sensory hack, manipulating both sight and sound within its environment. Perhaps the most humbling realization is that all of this, camouflage, mimicry, communication, navigation, is achieved within a lifespan shorter than 2 years. The cuttlefish grows rapidly, matures, mates, and dies, leaving behind eggs carefully hidden in coral branches or seagrass beds. The juveniles hatch as miniature adults, fully equipped with chromatophores and reflex camouflage abilities. There is no learning curve, no parental guidance. Their mastery of illusion is instinctual, coded into their DNA. It is a fleeting brilliance, a life spent in high-speed performance, perfected over eons of evolutionary rehearsal. When we view the reef through artificial light, we often miss the subtler wavelengths where the cuttlefish's world truly exists. Polarized flashes invisible to us pulse across the water, silent dramas of deception play out in plain sight. To human eyes, it is a blank stage. To the cuttlefish, it is a living conversation of contrast, rhythm, and motion, a world governed not by strength, but by perception. In the end, the cuttlefish's genius lies in its refusal to commit to form. It is never one thing for long. Predator, prey, messenger, mimic, and magician, it shifts through these roles with seamless transition, a master of both signal and silence. Its strobe hypnotizes, its stillness deceives, and through it all, the reef remains unaware that the most intelligent actor in its midst is not the shark or the dolphin, but a soft-bodied illusionist that survives by rewriting reality at the speed of thought. Night falls across the shallow reef, and what daylight once revealed as calm coral gardens now transforms into an arena of shadows. The water is heavy with plankton that glows faintly when disturbed, creating constellations in motion. Between the soft hills of sand and coral rubble, burrows mark the hidden architecture of the reef's nocturnal inhabitants. One of these holes is different, perfectly round, ringed with discarded shells, and defended by a pair of eyes that shimmer like polished emeralds. The owner is a mantis shrimp, and tonight its territory will be tested. To understand the mantis shrimp is to witness evolution's obsession with extremes. It is not truly a shrimp, nor a mantis, but a stomatopod, a distant cousin of crabs and lobsters that has diverged into a lineage so specialized it seems purpose-built for a different universe. Every part of its body is refined for combat and perception. Forelimbs built like coiled siege hammers, vision capable of detecting ultraviolet and polarized light, reflexes measured in milliseconds. It lives not as a wanderer, but as a gladiator of confined spaces, ruling a burrow it excavates and maintains like a fortress. From here it hunts, courts, and defends. The duel begins long before the first strike. A rival has arrived, drawn by chemical signals drifting through the current, pheromones from a neighboring mantis shrimp, an indication that a potential mate or opponent is near. The intruder approaches cautiously, antennae trembling as it reads the scent trail. Within the burrow, the resident stirs. The entrance pulses once with movement as its antennae sweep outward, sensing vibration. Then both emerge, facing each other under the blue shimmer of bioluminescent plankton. At first glance, their meeting looks ceremonial rather than violent. Both raise their raptorial limbs high, displaying them like banners. The exoskeleton flashes in metallic hues, turquoise, orange, and gold, catching the faintest moonlight that filters through the surface. This ritualized display, repeated in mantis shrimp species across tropical oceans, serves a critical evolutionary purpose: to avoid unnecessary violence. The creatures are capable of delivering blows so powerful they can shatter shells and even crack aquarium glass. Yet, more often than not, they prefer to posture and assess. The color display, the flex of limbs, and the tapping of antennae are all forms of communication, a visual language meant to measure strength without risk of catastrophic injury. When neither backs down, the duel escalates. Each shrimp positions itself just outside striking range, their raptorial appendages folded beneath the head like the arms of a praying mantis, twitching in anticipation. Inside those limbs lies one of nature's most astonishing biomechanical systems. They function as spring-loaded catapults, powered not by muscle strength alone, but by a structure known as the saddle. This saddle acts like a biological crossbow, storing energy as the limb cocks backward. When released, the strike accelerates faster than the blink of an eye, reaching speeds exceeding 80 kilometers per hour. The acceleration is so extreme that water around the limb momentarily vaporizes, forming a cavitation bubble, a void that collapses with enough force to generate heat and light. This phenomenon, called cavitation, turns each punch into a double strike. First comes the physical impact of the limb, then the implosion of the bubble, releasing a shockwave strong enough to stun or kill prey, even if the limb misses its target. Under experimental observation with high-speed cameras, these collapses appear as brief, luminous flashes, tiny sparks of blue-green light flickering through the water. To the naked eye in natural conditions, they are almost invisible, but in clear, plankton-rich shallows, they can illuminate the sand in faint bursts. For a moment, it truly is lightning in slow motion. The duelers exchange several feints, each one triggering ripples through the surrounding water. Their antennae whip in agitation, and their colors intensify, shifting dynamically with mood and threat level. The intensity of color change in mantis shrimp is not simply aesthetic. It is an integrated part of their communication system. Specialized cells beneath the cuticle, called chromatophores, and structural reflectors, modulate how light bounces off the exoskeleton. Some species can even produce patterns visible only in polarized light, invisible to most other reef dwellers but crystal clear to each other. Through these secret wavelengths, they send warnings, challenges, and perhaps even recognition signals. When the first real strike lands, it happens faster than the human nervous system could register. The limb blurs, connects, and retracts before the eye can track it. A cloud of sand lifts from the sea floor. The opponent recoils unharmed but rattled, the sonic pop of the cavitation shockwave audible even to distant fish. The sound, a sharp snap like the discharge of an underwater capacitor, marks the climax of this confrontation. Yet, unlike predators that fight to kill, the mantis shrimp uses restraint. The duel is about ownership, not destruction. After a few more exchanges, each carefully measured, each carrying the potential to maim, one contestant yields, curling its limbs close and retreating backward into the gloom. The victor stands poised above its burrow for several seconds, scanning the water before lowering itself back into safety. The reef quiets again. For all their aggression, mantis shrimp are deeply methodical creatures. Their territorial maintenance borders on architectural obsession. Inside the burrow, they construct chambers for molting, mating, and resting. The entrance is often reinforced with pebbles and fragments of coral, shaped and repositioned with remarkable precision. When molting, a vulnerable period where the exoskeleton softens, the shrimp seals itself in completely, creating an airtight chamber that protects against predation and infection. After the molt, the discarded shell is dragged outside and arranged near the burrow entrance, possibly as a warning to intruders. This space is occupied by something that wins fights. The energy demands of such a life are immense. Mantis shrimp are carnivorous opportunists, preying on crabs, snails, and small fish. Two broad categories exist among them. Smashers, like the species seen here, equipped with club-like appendages for breaking shells, and spearers, armed with spined, bladed limbs used to impale soft-bodied prey. Smashers dominate rocky habitats and coral rubble, while spearers prefer sandy flats where ambushes are more effective. Despite these differences, both share the same astonishing visual and cognitive sophistication. Their eyes, perched on independent stalks, are among the most advanced in the animal kingdom. Each eye contains up to 16 types of photoreceptor cells, compared to only 3 in humans. They perceive ultraviolet and polarized light and can analyze color with extraordinary precision. Each eye can also move independently, scanning in different directions, while still combining information to form depth perception. This level of visual processing allows mantis shrimp to detect prey movement, identify rivals, and interpret the reflective patterns of other species in ways beyond human comprehension. Some researchers suggest they might even perceive details in motion that are effectively invisible to us. The world slowed down by neural speed. These visual capabilities extend into their social lives. Mantis shrimp pairs often engage in long-term partnerships, cohabiting and cooperating in burrow defense. During courtship, they perform synchronized dances, gentle waves of antennae, and slow rotations that display their colors without aggression. The female, once fertilized, lays hundreds of eggs which she holds in her limbs, constantly aerating and cleaning them. In some species, both parents guard the brood, alternating hunting and defensive duties. Such cooperation challenges traditional views of crustacean behavior, suggesting that intelligence and social complexity can evolve in forms far removed from mammalian models. On a broader ecological scale, mantis shrimp are both predator and engineer. Their burrowing aerates sediment, facilitating nutrient exchange between oxygen-rich water and deeper layers. This activity supports microbial life that in turn benefits the entire reef ecosystem. Their predation on snails and crabs helps control populations that would otherwise overgraze coral surfaces. Thus, even their violence contributes to balance, destruction as a form of maintenance. In the rare stillness that follows a duel, the reef absorbs its silence. The faint luminescence of disturbed plankton lingers, fading like stars at dawn. Inside its burrow, the mantis shrimp resumes its watch. Its limbs fold neatly against its chest, coiled with energy, ready to unleash another burst of physics-defying speed at the next trespasser. It exists in a state of perpetual readiness, its body an instrument calibrated to the edge of physical possibility. What evolution achieved in this small creature borders on absurd, an animal barely the length of a human hand capable of generating forces that, scaled to size, would rival those of bullets. Yet nature rarely creates such power without purpose. The mantis shrimp's world is one of confined spaces and direct encounters, a life lived in milliseconds, where success is measured not by endurance, but by precision. Its strikes, luminous and violent, remind us that even in the calmest corners of the sea, the laws of physics bend to biology's relentless creativity. By dawn, the water has cleared. The burrow entrance gleams faintly in the morning light, surrounded by a halo of crushed shell fragments, trophies, tools, and warnings all at once. The mantis shrimp remains hidden within, waiting. It does not know that humans once named their weapon systems after it, nor that its claw mechanics inspired research into new materials stronger than steel. It simply knows the rhythm of intrusion and defense, of strike and silence. When the next ripple disturbs the sand outside, lightning will flash again beneath the surface, invisible to all but those who know how to see in slow motion. Dusk settles over the reef like the closing of an ancient theater curtain. The last shafts of sunlight fracture into amber ribbons before vanishing into a deepening indigo haze. In this moment between day and night, when diurnal fish retreat into coral dens and nocturnal hunters stir beneath ledges, the lionfish emerges. It drifts from shadow as if born from the darkness itself, a living ornament of plumes and velvet fins, every motion impossibly slow, impossibly graceful. Yet behind this elegance lies the precision of an ambush predator perfectly adapted to the twilight shift. The lionfish does not stalk with speed or stealth in the conventional sense. It hunts through stillness. Each fin ray, long and tapered like the quill of a feather, spreads into a fan that bends water more than it cuts it. When extended, these fins form a net, a perimeter of motionless threat. The lionfish advances without hurry, relying on illusion rather than pursuit. Small fish, interpreting the wide spread of its fins as the shape of a passive or harmless creature, fail to perceive danger until it is too late. This is the art of the velvet net, a hunting technique built not on aggression, but manipulation of perception. From above, the lionfish's pattern of alternating red, white, and brown stripes blurs into the coral lattice beneath. To the untrained eye, it looks ornamental, almost gentle. But to the reef's residents, that striped pattern is a false promise. The fins that wave so lazily conceal venomous spines, each tipped with a hypodermic barb capable of delivering a cocktail of neurotoxins. The venom does not serve to kill prey. It is strictly defensive. But its existence allows the lionfish to hunt without fear. Few predators challenge it. The confidence of invulnerability defines its behavior, unhurried, visible, dominant. In an ecosystem governed by speed and evasion, the lionfish moves as though time itself has slowed to its rhythm. As the last light fades, the lionfish's environment transforms into a tapestry of black and blue currents. The water cools slightly, and the night circulation begins, a system of eddies, upwellings, and backflows driven by temperature differences between lagoon shallows and deeper channels. To a casual observer, these currents are invisible. To the lionfish, they are maps. Each swirl of water carries scent and micro vibrations that reveal the presence of prey and the shape of the terrain. Using its delicate pectoral fins, the lionfish feels these minute changes, tracing the invisible highways that funnel plankton and small fish through coral alleys. It positions itself precisely where the flow converges, at the entrance of what biologists call a current funnel, a narrow zone where hydrodynamic pressure forces prey past ambush points. Here, the lionfish becomes a gatekeeper. It hovers motionless, head angled slightly downward, fins arched outward in a perfect semicircle. Its target tonight, a loose shoal of juvenile cardinal fish venturing too far from shelter. The lionfish approaches so slowly that even the most sensitive lateral lines fail to register motion. It uses a subtle technique known as fin-fan herding. By spreading its pectoral fins wide and curving them forward, it creates a visual barrier, cornering prey not by contact but by suggestion. The fish perceive the wide fins as impassable and instinctively turn inward, toward the lionfish's waiting mouth. In a final maneuver, the lionfish opens its mouth in a sudden vacuum strike. The jaws expand with astonishing speed, sucking in water and prey together. Unlike most predators that bite or grasp, the lionfish inhales its victim whole, the expansion of its buccal cavity generating negative pressure strong enough to pull in prey from several body lengths away. The entire act is silent, invisible beyond a faint ripple of sand. The fish vanishes into the predator's mouth, and within moments the lionfish resumes its calm poise, gliding as if nothing had happened. What makes this hunting style remarkable is not its lethality, but its efficiency. Lionfish burn minimal energy for maximum gain, a crucial adaptation for creatures that hunt throughout the night. They often repeat the process dozens of times, drifting from coral head to coral head, letting the current carry them rather than swimming against it. Each ambush is calculated, each position chosen for flow dynamics rather than chance. The reef's micro-topography, every hollow ridge and overhang, becomes part of their strategy. When the lionfish encounters larger prey, it adjusts its tactics. Researchers have observed individuals coordinating loosely in small groups, herding schools of fish into confined spaces. Each lionfish maintains a defined position, using synchronized fin movements to corral prey like underwater shepherds. While not cooperative in the social sense, there is no communication or shared reward. The behavior demonstrates a collective understanding of geometry and pressure. The group forms a living corral, driving prey into rock corners where escape routes vanish. Then, almost simultaneously, each lionfish strikes. These moments, illuminated only by bioluminescent plankton flashing around the turbulence, resemble a slow-motion explosion of light and death. The lionfish's night vision grants it an added advantage. Its large eyes, adapted for low light, contain a reflective layer known as the tapetum lucidum, which amplifies available light much like a mirror. Combined with specialized retinal pigments sensitive to blue-green wavelengths, this adaptation allows the lionfish to see detail where others see only shadow. It perceives movement in 3 dimensions, judging distance and direction with uncanny precision. This visual acuity explains its hunting success even in near total darkness, when prey depend on concealment. The lionfish sees what others cannot, and uses it to dominate the nocturnal food chain. Paradoxically, despite its elegance and biological sophistication, the lionfish represents one of the greatest ecological disruptions in the modern ocean. Native to the Indo-Pacific, it has become an invasive force across the Atlantic and Caribbean, introduced accidentally through the aquarium trade. In regions where native species lack defenses against its venom and tactics, the lionfish population has exploded, decimating juvenile reef fish and altering entire ecosystems. A single female can release tens of thousands of eggs every few days, and their larvae disperse widely on ocean currents. Without natural predators to limit their spread, lionfish have transformed from graceful ambush artists into ecological monopolists. Yet even this destructive success underscores how perfectly evolution has engineered them for predation. Their behavior is not malicious, it is mechanical, efficient, and inevitable. In their native range, however, the balance remains intact. There, the lionfish fulfills a necessary role in regulating small reef fish populations, maintaining ecological order. Its venom deters large predators, yet some specialized hunters, such as certain moray eels and large groupers, have learned to target it successfully. These interactions preserve equilibrium, proof that even a creature of apparent invincibility is woven into the fabric of the reef's checks and balances. The lionfish's restraint during hunting, its ritualistic patience, its avoidance of unnecessary strikes, mirrors this ecological harmony. Predation here is not chaos, but design. When observed under red light at night, lionfish exhibit behaviors invisible to divers during the day. They patrol the edges of coral bommies, using the rhythmic pulse of their fins to maintain position in fluctuating currents. Occasionally, they pause to fan their fins outward in a full display, not as a threat, but as a hydrodynamic adjustment, fine-tuning their control of the flow. This subtle mastery of movement, this merging of body and water, defines their hunting success. They are not simply animals within the current, they are extensions of it, manipulating turbulence to herd, corner, and capture. As midnight deepens, the reef's soundscape becomes an intricate symphony. The crackle of snapping shrimp punctuates the low hum of the current. A crab scuttles across rock, unaware that the velvet net has returned. The lionfish glides closer, its stripes now blending into the moonlight's dapple. It stops, fans its fins, and waits. The crab hesitates, sensing vibration but not shape, and freezes. Then, with the faintest pulse of motion, the lionfish strikes again. In the aftermath, the water returns to calm, and only drifting plankton glows faintly around the predator's outline. Each hunt, each inhalation, is part of a rhythm that will continue until dawn. When light returns, the lionfish will retreat into overhangs, its colors dulling slightly to match the coral's palette. It will rest in silence, its venomous spines folding neatly along its back, waiting for the next cycle of darkness to bring the current alive once more. In the grand theater of the reef, the lionfish performs its role without flourish or haste, a contradiction of beauty and lethality, grace and precision. It kills without pursuit, commands without movement, and survives by rewriting the very rules of perception. Beneath its velvet fins lies a truth the ocean understands instinctively, that mastery of stillness can be the deadliest form of motion. In the shallows where the reef dissolves into sand flats, the ocean holds its breath. The water is barely knee-deep, lit by a flickering mosaic of moonlight and reflected stars. A hermit crab scuttles between coral fragments, a small goby darts from one burrow to another, but the true predator of this world is invisible, a master of immobility. Buried beneath a thin layer of sand lies a creature so perfectly disguised that even the tide forgets it is there. The stonefish. At first glance, the stonefish looks less like an animal than a discarded fragment of reef. Its body is knotted with warts and lumps, colored in a palette of decay, ochre, gray, green, and brown, the hues of rot and rock. Algae grows on its back, sediment clings to its skin, barnacles sometimes take root as if it were driftwood. This camouflage is not an aesthetic choice but a calculated adaptation. To move would be to betray itself, so the stonefish doesn't. For hours, sometimes days, it remains motionless, its outline blurred into the seabed. Only the faintest twitch of a gill slit betrays life. To prey, it is a corpse. To the unwary human foot, a catastrophe waiting in silence. The stonefish occupies an ecological niche that demands patience and precision. Unlike active hunters such as groupers or morays, it relies entirely on ambush predation. Its physiology is built around stillness, dense muscles that hold position without fatigue, skin patterns that scatter light to break form, and an internal buoyancy balance that allows it to rest without sinking or rising. This balance, maintained by careful control of internal gases, keeps the fish suspended in sand as if by invisible wires. To conserve energy, it enters a metabolic lull, its heart rate slowing to a fraction of normal. It is, in every sense, a living mine, inert until triggered. When a potential victim enters range, a small reef fish, a blenny, or even a shrimp, the stonefish activates in a burst of biomechanics so violent it borders on the unreal. The strike begins with a sudden expansion of its buccal cavity, the hollow space inside its head. Muscles contract around this cavity like the snapping of a mechanical valve, creating a near-instant vacuum. The resulting suction pulls prey directly into its mouth faster than a blink. High-speed cameras reveal that the entire attack lasts less than 1/1000th of a second, faster than the human eye can perceive, faster even than many insects can react. The prey never has a chance to flee. The stonefish doesn't chase, doesn't even bite. It simply opens its mouth, and the surrounding world rushes in. This precision strike is followed by an equally deliberate reset. After swallowing, the stonefish exhales a narrow jet of water through its gill openings, expelling sand and debris that may have been disturbed during the strike. This sand jet reset is a subtle but critical behavior. It clears the field of visual evidence, erasing the telltale plume that could reveal its position to other creatures, while simultaneously burying it slightly deeper into the substrate. Within seconds, the hunter becomes a corpse once more, a shape erased back into the topography of the seafloor. Its efficiency as an ambush predator is matched only by its reputation as the ocean's most venomous fish. Along its dorsal ridge, 13 thick spines stand ready beneath fleshy lobes of skin. These are not active weapons, they are defensive tripwires. When pressure is applied, the weight of a misstep or the bite of an attacker, the skin compresses and the spine punctures upward through the tissue. A venom gland at the base of each spine releases a milky fluid through grooves into the wound. The injection is automatic, driven by simple physics, not aggression. The venom itself is a complex blend of proteins and neurotoxins known to cause excruciating pain, paralysis, and in severe cases, cardiac failure. The mechanism is ancient, perfected over millions of years, and effective enough that few predators dare test it twice. The spines are not merely tools of survival, but part of a broader evolutionary arms race that shapes reef ecosystems. In shallow tidal zones where space and shelter are scarce, predation risk is constant. Venomous species like the stonefish represent deterrence strategies that reduce direct combat. Instead of fleeing or fighting, they weaponize stillness. By making themselves both invisible and dangerous, they shift the dynamics of the ecosystem around them. Crabs and small fish learn to avoid certain textures or shadows, imprinting the silhouette of danger into their collective memory. Over time, entire food chains bend around this stationary threat. As the tide retreats under a waxing moon, the danger extends beyond the reef's residents. For humans, the stonefish's perfect disguise becomes a deadly deception. Shallow water wading, especially in tropical lagoons, carries hidden peril. Step on one and the response is instantaneous. The dorsal spines puncture flesh and venom floods tissue within seconds. Victims describe the sensation not as a sting but as a searing, bone-deep agony. a pain so intense it radiates through the body, accompanied by swelling, discoloration, and nausea. In regions where antivenom is scarce, the risk of shock or secondary infection compounds the threat. The injury, while rarely fatal with prompt care, remains among the most painful in marine biology. To understand why such potent venom evolved, one must look at the stonefish's vulnerability. Despite its weaponry, it is slow, heavy-bodied, and incapable of sustained flight. Its defense is deterrence, not escape. The venom serves as insurance against the rare but inevitable encounter with larger predators, rays, sharks, or seabirds that might mistake it for carrion. Once bitten, a predator experiences instant aversion, often abandoning the meal and remembering the pattern that caused it. This learned avoidance reinforces the stonefish's evolutionary niche as an untouchable sentinel. The venom's biochemical complexity is itself a marvel. It contains a mixture of cardiotoxins, hemotoxins, and potent neurotransmitters that attack both muscle and nerve pathways. One component, stillness toxin, causes blood vessels to dilate and leak, leading to swelling and tissue damage. Another, verrucotoxin, interferes with calcium channels in cardiac tissue, disrupting rhythm. These molecules are highly specialized, designed not for predation, but for deterrence. Yet paradoxically, their study has yielded insights for human medicine, offering potential pathways for pain control and cardiovascular research. Even the deadliest fish carries within it the blueprint for healing. In the broader theater of the reef, the stonefish represents a philosophy of minimalism. It does not chase or migrate, it does not build or court, and it rarely engages in conflict. It survives through patience, a predator reduced to its purest function. Each motion it performs, from its vacuum strike to its sand jet reset, is the result of precise evolutionary tuning. Its life revolves around singular moments of violence separated by long hours of absolute stillness. This rhythm, burst and silence, strike and rest, defines its ecological role as both predator and prey. At night, when the shallows cool and plankton drift closer to shore, the stonefish remains buried, sensing the faint pressure waves of passing life. Its lateral line system, a row of microscopic mechanoreceptors along its body, detects vibration patterns with extraordinary sensitivity. Through these vibrations, it perceives the world not as sight or sound, but as movement and pressure, a continuous symphony of invisible motion. It can tell the difference between a grazing crab and a wading bird by the way water displaces around them. When a fish passes close, the stonefish tenses, the vacuum chamber primed. For a fraction of a second, time fractures, and another life ends. The cycle repeats endlessly, hidden in plain sight. Sand drifts over the body, small invertebrates crawl across its skin, algae blooms anew. If the camera lingers, the viewer might forget that this lump of stone is alive at all, until the next flicker of motion reveals the predator within. It is evolution's dark humor at work, a corpse that feeds, a rock that kills. For coastal communities throughout the Indo-Pacific, the stonefish has become both warning and symbol. Fishermen wear protective footwear not from superstition but from centuries of experience. Traditional healers once mapped its danger zones by memory, passing knowledge through generations. Modern science has confirmed what local wisdom always knew, that this is not a creature to fear irrationally, but to respect absolutely. The stonefish is not malicious. It is perfection in stillness, a sculpted equilibrium between invisibility and lethality. By dawn, the tide returns, washing away footprints and footprints of danger alike. The water brightens, reflecting the gold of the rising sun. Somewhere beneath, motionless again, lies the corpse that breathes, patient, silent, waiting for the next misstep in a world too careless to notice what hides beneath its feet. Night on the reef is a geometry of movement and breath. The moon, fractured by the water's surface, casts rippling grids of light across coral spires, and through these shifting lattices glide shapes so slender they seem drawn by a single stroke of ink. Sea snakes, true serpents of the ocean, move with a slow, hypnotic grace that belies the precision of the physics keeping them alive. To survive in this in-between world, neither fully of land nor sea, They must solve an equation that would undo almost any other reptile: how to live as an air breather in a liquid world.
Every motion they make, every dive, every ascent is calculated around this problem, an arithmetic of oxygen. A human freediver might last 3 minutes underwater.
A sea snake, depending on species, can extend that to over 2 hours, and it does so not by magic, but by mathematics written into its anatomy. The lungs of a sea snake run nearly the entire length of its body, an evolutionary elongation that turns the respiratory organ into a multifunctional device. The forward section acts as a true lung for gas exchange. The posterior part functions as a buoyancy chamber, regulating depth much like a diver's air tank. With each breath at the surface, the snake adjusts this system, inhaling not to fill its chest, but to balance its body precisely between rising and sinking. In the quiet weight of the sea, it hovers effortlessly, a living equation balanced between gravity and air. Unlike fish, which extract oxygen directly from water through gills, the sea snake must return to the surface periodically to breathe. But this vulnerability has been mitigated by a remarkable adaptation. It can absorb oxygen directly through its skin. Capillaries packed densely beneath the scales allow a small but critical percentage of respiration to occur through cutaneous gas exchange. In some species, this accounts for nearly 1/3 of total oxygen intake. Combined with a heart rate that slows dramatically during dives, it allows the animal to remain submerged for astonishing durations. Yet this adaptation comes with trade-offs. The same permeable skin that lets oxygen in can also let toxins out, which is why sea snakes avoid polluted shallows, an early casualty of the industrial reefs now spreading across parts of the Indo-Pacific. As the camera follows one gliding along a coral wall, its body undulates with perfect hydraulic control. The movement is not simple sidewinding or slithering, but a three-dimensional ribboning, a dance of resistance and momentum. The snake's paddle-shaped tail, unique among its terrestrial relatives, is the key. Flattened vertically like an oar, it provides both propulsion and steering, enabling rapid bursts when prey must be seized or danger avoided. Each flick of the tail ripples down the body in controlled waves, turning the snake into a living sine curve. The scales are smooth, hydrophilic, and often coated with a thin film of mucus to reduce drag. To the touch, they would feel not slimy but frictionless, the texture of wet silk. Beneath this serenity lies a ruthless hunter. The sea snake's diet revolves around reef fish, particularly eels and gobies hiding in cracks. Its strategy is to probe nose first into crevices too tight for any other predator. Using heat-sensitive pits near the nostrils, it detects faint thermal signatures, the heartbeat of a hidden fish, the twitch of an eye muscle. The attack is surgical. A single, lightning-quick bite delivers one of the most potent venoms in the natural world, a neurotoxic blend capable of immobilizing prey in seconds. The snake does not chase or struggle. It simply withdraws and waits for paralysis to set in before retrieving its meal. Ironically, its venom is often more powerful than it needs to be, an artifact of evolution's conservative design. When survival depends on certainty, redundancy is never wasted. By moonlight, however, hunting shifts from solitary precision to opportunistic chaos. Small fish seek refuge among coral heads to sleep, and the sea snakes exploit this nightly migration. Multiple individuals, sometimes dozens, converge on the same patch of reef, slipping between branches like liquid metal. They twist and weave through the coral maze, flushing prey from hiding. These gatherings can resemble feeding frenzies, but they are not coordinated hunts. They are collisions of instinct. The density of bodies, the intertwining of tails, and the shimmering confusion of scales often lead to mistaken encounters. Divers who have observed these events report the occasional fin test, when a curious or disoriented male mistakes a human flipper for the body of a female. The behavior is not aggression but reproductive confusion. The snake, following chemical cues, simply investigates. For divers, the etiquette is simple: remain still, avoid sudden motion, and the snake will lose interest. Panic, on the other hand, can draw unwanted attention. In this strange nocturnal etiquette, calmness equals safety. mating season brings even more dramatic scenes. As temperatures rise during the austral summer, sea snakes gather in shallow lagoons in swarming displays. Males coil around females in entangled braids, each competing for the chance to align cloacae long enough for fertilization to occur. The writhing mass of bodies can last for hours, resembling a living rope of gold and bronze. Yet even here, oxygen math dictates the rhythm. Every few minutes, individuals break the surface for a quick sip of air, the head barely protruding before slipping back down. These brief respirations are choreographed with instinctive precision, a split-second balancing act between the drive to mate and the need to breathe. Unlike their terrestrial ancestors, most sea snakes give birth to live young rather than laying eggs on land. But one exception, the banded sea crate, still returns to shore to nest. Watching a female haul herself up the wet rocks is like seeing evolution in reverse. Her body, built for water, moves awkwardly on land, pushing forward in jerky surges. She searches for a secure crevice above the tide line to deposit leathery eggs, each one a fragile capsule of her amphibious legacy. These reef egg raids attract opportunistic predators, crabs, monitor lizards, and occasionally scavenging birds. For the sea crate, nesting is the most perilous phase of her life, a reminder that the cost of adaptation is never fully paid. Despite their formidable venom, sea snakes rarely pose a threat to humans. Their fangs are short, fixed at the front of the mouth, and primarily designed for catching small, soft-bodied fish. When confronted, they usually retreat rather than strike. Most bites recorded occur when a snake is accidentally grabbed or trapped in fishing nets, where panic triggers defense. Even then, fatalities are rare thanks to modern antivenoms and quick response. For divers and fishers who share the water, the unspoken rule is mutual respect. Move slowly, watch where you place your hands, and remember that curiosity, not hostility, drives most encounters. The sea snake's relationship with air defines not only their behavior but their entire physiology. Their dives follow predictable cycles governed by metabolic budgeting. After a deep foraging descent, carbon dioxide builds up in the bloodstream, triggering a slow rise toward the surface. The ascent is unhurried, a spiral rather than a dash, conserving oxygen to the last possible moment. Upon reaching the surface, they break through in silence. A ripple, a faint exhalation, and a sip of air taken in less than a second. Then, just as quietly, they vanish again. From above, these brief surface breaks resemble raindrops on calm water, each marking the end of one calculation and the beginning of another in the endless equation of breath and time. At dawn, the currents shift. At dawn, the erupt. The reef brightens with the return of parrotfish and wrasses, and the snakes retreat to deeper ledges to rest. Here, among sponges and caves, they anchor themselves by wrapping tails around coral branches, allowing the current to flow over their bodies while their metabolism slows. Oxygen continues to diffuse through their skin, maintaining the equilibrium until the next hunt. To see one resting like this, eyes half closed, body draped across coral as if asleep, is to witness evolution's compromise between two worlds. In the grand ledger of the ocean, sea snakes represent a rare solution to a nearly impossible problem. They have no gills, no scales suited for dryness, no lungs designed for depth. Yet they bridge these contradictions through precision. Every heartbeat, every breath, every glide is an act of calculation, a biological equation balanced to the edge of sufficiency. They are not merely reptiles that adapted to the sea. They are mathematicians of oxygen, solving the riddle of air beneath water with each graceful movement. As the moon rises once more and the surface gleams like a sheet of hammered silver, a lone snake ascends through the glow. It pauses just below the surface, measuring pressure and timing. Then, with a subtle flick, it breaks through, a small ripple, a silent sip, and vanishes again into the dark geometry below. The ocean closes over it, leaving only a circle of disturbed moonlight that fades in seconds, as if the equation has balanced itself once more. The sun has slipped below the horizon, and the shallow lagoon enters its quiet transformation. The water darkens from glassy turquoise to a liquid mirror of fading crimson. Where the reef's corals end,
a pale sand flat begins, seemingly barren, undisturbed except for the faint circular marks scattered across its surface. These rings are not random. Each is the signature of one of the ocean's most elegant engineers, the stingray. In the still water of night, the stingray becomes invisible. Its form, broad and soft-edged, mirrors the texture of the seabed so perfectly that only a faint outline betrays its presence. The body lies flat, half buried beneath fine grains, eyes and spiracles just above the surface, scanning and breathing while the rest remains hidden. To look directly at it is to question what one sees. Sand and animal blend seamlessly into one form. Yet beneath that stillness lies an organism of extraordinary precision, a predator that reads the electric whispers of life itself. The stingray's advantage is not sight, but electricity. Hidden within its skin are thousands of tiny sensory organs called ampullae of Lorenzini, gel-filled pores that detect minute electrical fields generated by the heartbeat, muscle twitches, and neural impulses of other animals. In the near-total darkness of the lagoon, these electroreceptors act like radar, revealing prey even when buried under layers of sand. To a stingray, the world is an invisible constellation of pulses and signals. A crab hiding beneath the substrate, a fish resting motionless, even the faint charge of a worm's nervous system, all stand out against the static hum of the seafloor. The hunt begins with silence. The stingray glides slowly above the bottom, undulating its pectoral fins in smooth, wave-like motions. The movement is hypnotic, resembling a piece of silk drifting in current. Then, without warning, the rhythm changes. The ray halts and hovers, reading the electromagnetic terrain. With a subtle tilt, it positions itself precisely over a buried animal, its sensors having triangulated the location within centimeters. The next moment unfolds in explosive choreography. In one swift motion, the stingray contracts its fins downward, forcing water into the sand. The seafloor erupts into a perfect circular plume, a ring of dust that expands outward like an underwater halo. This sand halo eruption is both a visual spectacle and a calculated tool. The jet of water dislodges hidden prey, exposing crabs or mollusks that thought themselves safe beneath the surface. The stingray's mouth, located on the underside of its body, is perfectly positioned to seize the now exposed meal. It vacuums the prey in with surprising force, crushing shells with specialized dental plates adapted for grinding. Each eruption leaves behind an unmistakable crater, a ring of cleared sand surrounded by a raised rim. Over time, these feeding rings accumulate across the lagoon floor, evidence of countless hunts. Ecologists studying satellite imagery have even identified stingray feeding halos from above, subtle distortions in sand structure visible across entire reef systems. What seems like random disturbance is, in fact, a record of ecological maintenance. By stirring sediment, stingrays recycle nutrients trapped within the seabed, oxygenate buried layers, and create feeding opportunities for smaller scavengers. In this way, the predator becomes an inadvertent gardener, reshaping the seafloor with every meal. But the stingray's world is not only one of predation, it is also one of ritual. As moonlight strengthens over the flats, the first courtship trains begin to form. During certain lunar phases, particularly near the full moon, groups of males gather to follow a receptive female. They glide behind her in orderly sequence, each one shadowing the other's path in a choreography of patience and persistence. Scientists call this behavior courtship train formation, and its timing with lunar cycles is no coincidence. The moon's gravitational pull not only governs tides, but subtly influences reproductive rhythms across marine species. For stingrays, higher tides during full moons open wider hunting and mating grounds, offering both safety from predators and space for their courtship rituals. The female leads the procession, indifferent to her followers. Each male, however, is driven by a combination of scent and subtle body language. He mirrors her turns, matches her speed, and occasionally brushes her pectoral fins in tentative contact. When she is ready, she slows just enough for one male to align his body alongside hers. The act of mating is brief and acrobatic, a twisting embrace beneath the sand or mid-water, where the male clasps her fin with specialized claspers near his tail. Afterward, she glides away toward deeper water, leaving the train to scatter. The males, sensing her departure, resume their restless circuits across the flats, waiting for another signal in the currents. Reproduction in stingrays is a marvel of biological adaptation. Many species are ovoviviparous, a term meaning that embryos develop inside eggs retained within the mother's body until they hatch. The young are then born live, fully formed, miniature replicas of the adult, complete with fins and a small version of the tail spine. This reproductive strategy offers an evolutionary advantage: protection from the high mortality of egg-laying in a landscape filled with scavengers. When born, the young immediately bury themselves in sand, instinctively adopting the camouflage that defines their lineage. The infamous sting, so often mythologized in human imagination, is less a weapon than an insurance policy. Along the upper surface of the tail lies a serrated spine encased in a sheath of skin. At the base of this spine are venom glands that release toxins only when the sheath is ruptured, typically if the ray lashes out in defense. Contrary to popular belief, the stingray does not attack unprovoked. The spine is passive armor, not an offensive tool. Most injuries to humans occur when someone steps directly onto a hidden ray, triggering an instinctive tail flick. Divers and fishermen in tropical regions have long learned the etiquette of coexistence: shuffle feet through shallows rather than lifting them, and never corner a ray. The animal's best defense is avoidance. When given space, it prefers to flee rather than fight. The mechanics of the sting are fascinating in their own right. The spine's serrations act like backward-facing barbs, designed to lodge in a predator's skin and deter pursuit. The venom, a complex mix of proteins, enzymes, and serotonin, induces intense pain and localized tissue damage, but is rarely fatal. Evolutionarily, it is meant to discourage, not kill. For large sharks and crocodiles, a sting can be enough to dissuade further attack. For humans, it serves as a stark reminder of the boundaries between observer and participant in the ocean's hierarchy. Stingrays possess a calm intelligence suited to their environment. Their large disc-like brains are among the most developed of cartilaginous fishes, rivaling those of some sharks in complexity. They exhibit spatial memory, recognizing familiar terrain and returning to the same feeding grounds night after night. Some researchers have even observed individual rays recognizing divers who regularly visit their habitats, approaching them with apparent curiosity. This cognitive flexibility underscores a broader truth about rays. Behind their placid expressions lies a creature finely attuned to both physical and social dynamics of its world. Ecologically, the stingray is a keystone of sedimentary health. By displacing sand and exposing buried nutrients, it stimulates microbial growth and contributes to the productivity of coastal ecosystems. Its feeding craters serve as microhabitats for small fish and invertebrates, creating biodiversity hotspots across otherwise monotonous flats. In regions where stingray populations have declined due to overfishing or habitat loss, scientists have documented measurable changes in sediment composition and nutrient cycling, the ripple effect of a missing architect. As dawn approaches, the lagoon begins to brighten, and the stingrays withdraw to deeper channels. Their departure leaves behind a constellation of rings, hundreds of circular impressions glowing faintly under the first light. Each is a record of life's delicate arithmetic: energy spent, oxygen consumed, prey taken, sediment moved. To the untrained eye, they are simply patterns in sand. To the biologist, they are proof of equilibrium, a predator whose actions sustain the world it feeds upon. The camera lingers on the final image, a single stingray resting half-buried, its eyes just above the sand, the rising sun glinting on the fine dust that settles around it. In this stillness lies the paradox of its existence, a creature capable of both violence and grace, destruction and renewal. Its halo, formed from the disturbance of sand, is a testament not to chaos but to balance. The ring of dust will fade with the tide, erased by waves and time, but the pattern will repeat, again and again, as long as the sea remembers how to breathe.